It was in the summer between my sophomore and junior years in college that I decided not to go back to school. I had no idea what I was doing there. My classes meant nothing to me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. That might not have been such a terrible discovery if I'd been doing poorly, but I wasn't. I was acing all my classes, and I still didn't have a clue. School was costing my folks a small fortune, and I figured there had to be a better way to spend their money. They weren't happy when I told them, but my dad said it was my life and I could do what I wanted. I know they thought it had something to do with my older brother, Jimmy. He died in a car crash when I was a senior in high school. That was an awful shock. It was hard on all of us. I don't know if we ever really got over it. So maybe they were right, at least partially. I had a definite notion that education was more than what was going on in textbooks and classrooms. I felt invisible somehow, or like a sieve, like everything was just passing right through me. Nothing mattered. I know I wanted desperately to be doing something that mattered to me, but I didn't know what it was. I'm not trying to pass myself off as an especially thoughtful or sensitive person here. My happiest times at school were playing touch football and drinking beer. Dropping out of school may sound like the result of introspection, but with me it was a combination of guilt over wasting my parents' money and a desire to find something I could really care about. I didn't exactly set out on a grand worldwide quest. My folks said it would be all right if I lived at home, at least for a while, and I got a job working as a painter with a fireman who had been moonlighting at it for years. He had all the equipment, and he was great at lining up jobs and telling me what to do, but that's all he did. He never did any work himself, he didn't pay me much, and he was a drunk. After a few months, I stopped working for him and set up on my own. I had enough money to buy a second-hand truck and some ladders, and I was in business. I spread the word through the network of my friends and my parents' friends, and I got a few jobs with people my folks knew who either needed some paint work done or knew my folks well enough and felt sorry for them. I don't know. My dad didn't say anything one way or the other. My mom said, "Why did I have to be painting?" "The fumes aren't good for you," she said. "They'll kill your brain cells." "College already did that," I told her. "Be serious," she said. "I'll work with latex, Mom," I said. "No fumes, okay?" "Not okay," she said. "It'll be something else, something you don't know about. Every time they change something, because it's bad for you, all that happens is we get something new to worry about that we didn't find out until it's too late." "You worry too much, Mom," I said. "Yes, I worry," she said. "You're all I've got left." Whenever I'd be working for someone, I'd make it very clear that if they knew anybody else who needed work done, I'd be happy to bid on the job. And that's how I came to work for Adele Freeman. I was painting the kitchen of a lady named Parks. She was a good friend of my mother who owned twin black poodles named Flopsy and Mopsy, and she said that a friend of hers, actually it was someone who knew her daughter, needed some painting done, and I should call her. Adele Freeman lived in an older home on a nice street, big houses, Tudor style, leaded windows, slate roofs, well-kept yards. She and her husband had been living in the house for several years, she told me, but they hadn't had any time to do any work in it. Her husband was a very busy man, she told me. He was some kind of investment counselor, and he traveled a great deal. Now she thought she might like to remove some of the old wallpaper in the house and then paint the walls, try to brighten up the house. She showed me a spare bedroom. "I thought I might start in here," she said. "Do you think you could do it?" "You pick the color and I'll get it done for you," I told her. "That's fine," she said, smiling. "I've got the color all picked out." "You mean you want me to start?" I said. "Most of the time people want to know how much it will cost." "Of course," she said. "How much will it be?" I told her. She said that would be fine. She gave me a key to the house so I could work during the day when no one was home. I'd get home around 7, she told me. It took me the better part of a week to strip the wallpaper, clean and sand the walls, then paint the room, 2 coats. A few evenings I was still at it when she got home, and she'd come into the room to see how it was going, and we'd talk. She seemed like a nice lady, maybe in her mid-30s, still pretty good-looking. She wasn't at all like most of the girls I knew. For one thing, they were girls and she was a woman. That's the way I thought of it anyway. She wore business suits, and she had her hair cut short, and she wore makeup, jewelry, and perfume. When we talked, she asked me how I was doing, and I told her how I had been in school, but I wasn't now, at least for a while, and she said maybe a little time off wouldn't be such a bad thing. I don't think most students are mature enough to do that, she said, and she laughed and said, of course, maybe I'm just remembering what I was like as a student. I liked talking to her. Out of the college environment, I wasn't doing much talking to anybody, just the pleasantries with my folks. I didn't see her husband once the whole time I was there. They didn't have any kids. When I was done and she was paying me, she said she thought I'd done a very good job, and would I be interested in doing more work for her? I thought she meant another room in the house, and I said, sure. What did she have in mind? She said that she managed rental properties for a company. Her husband was a partner in the firm. It was one of his many business interests. Anyway, she said that many of the units in the properties had not been fixed up in quite some time, and if I could do some repair work, like simple carpentry and plastering, along with the painting, she would be able to give me enough work to keep me busy for a long time. I told her I was pretty handy. I thought I could do what she was talking about, and it sounded like a good deal. She told me where to meet her the next day. It was an older building with 10 units in it. 2 of them were unoccupied, and if I liked, I could start in them, she said. We went in and looked at them. They needed a lot of work, but it wasn't anything I couldn't do, and I told her that. She said I could submit fees on a unit-by-unit basis if that was all right with me, and I said it was. That work was a gold mine for me. There was plenty of it, and she paid me well. I was half thinking about hiring another guy to work for me, but then I remembered what I was doing, the overall plan, and it wasn't painting. I didn't want to be a painter for more reasons than the fumes, and I didn't want to run a business either. I just wanted to earn enough money so I'd be independent, and then I could do whatever I wanted. I thought maybe I would like to travel, go to Europe, ride the trains. She managed other multi-unit buildings and a number of duplexes. If she and her husband owned all that, even a chunk of it, they had to be making a pile of money. I'd see her every once in a while when I needed to get the key to a new place or to return one when I'd finished and pick up a check. And she'd always laugh and say, I never should have gotten you started. Now I'll never get my own house done. And one time she said that, and I said, look, you've been great for me, giving me all this business. I don't mind coming over and working on your house in my spare time. I won't even charge you for it, okay? She said, no, if you do the work, you deserve the money. I said, fine, pick out your colors and I'll start next week. It was a fairly tough, tedious job, taking off all that old wallpaper and smoothing the wall behind it, but I didn't mind doing it because Adele Freeman had been a big help to me. Because of her, I had a lot of money saved up, enough to do whatever I wanted to do, once I could figure out what it was. In some of the rooms, there were 3 or 4 layers of old paper, sizing and glue, and you had to get every last bit of it off before you started any new work. Otherwise, it shows. It might not show at first sometimes, but if you don't get it all off and start with a clean, fresh wall, the job just won't stand up. I'd go there after working during the day in one of her apartments, and I'd be tired, but often she'd come home and ask me if I wanted to split a pizza or order some Chinese food, and we'd eat together when I'd cleaned up. We did this for a few weeks, and still I never once saw her husband. I began to think that there was more to it than he was just a busy man, like maybe they were separated or getting a divorce. I couldn't understand it, because she seemed to have such a nice personality. Why would any guy leave her just to make money, especially when he already had a lot?